Proseguiamo con il secondo intervento che ci lega l'investimento sostenibile al debito dei mercati emergenti. Salima, please.
Hi, thank you for dialing in today. I'd like to talk about one asset class in particular today, which is emerging markets, but also linking emerging markets with sustainability. Most of the most insurers on this call have probably made pledges at entity level on sustainable issues, be it regarding their underwriting activities and their investment portfolios. At AllianceBernstein, we have been thinking about sustainability for a long time. We started managing some thematic funds back in the 90s in the equity space. In the fixed income space, we launched our first global credit fund in 2019. And then last year, we launched a series of funds, one of which is focused on emerging markets. Why emerging markets for insurers? Obviously, we have very favorable capital treatment for the asset class, and the yield pickup is quite attractive at the moment. So in the IG space, we are probably picking up somewhere around 75 to 100 basis points for like quality for EM versus global IG. Or developed markets IG, and then in the high yield space, the yield pickup is even more exacerbated, where EM high yield yields about 3% more than developed markets high yield. How we think about sustainability at AB within the fixed income space, all of the dedicated strategies that we have are thematic in essence. So if you go over to slide 3 in the deck that I have put together, the underpinning philosophy is seeking to generate superior financial returns through investments that benefit society and the environment. And underpinning all of this is that we think we don't have to sacrifice returns for sustainability. If you flip over to the next slide, you can see how our thematically aligned emerging markets universe actually performs better than the broader emerging markets universe, both in the sovereign space and the non-sovereign space. We have lower drawdowns in periods of market stress. Historically, we have run this data for the past 7 years, which is as far back as we could go. And then we have higher excess returns over the same period. Now, you may ask yourself how, in the corporate space, sustainability has been a theme that has been explored for a number of years in equities, and then increasingly so in fixed income. But how can we think about sustainably investing with a thematic angle within the sovereign space? So if you flip over to slide 5, you will see that there are three major tenets in how we think about this. First is investing thematically. We use the Sustainable Development Goals as our North Star for most of our portfolios with purpose. We are active investors. Engagement is extremely important to us. And within the sovereign space, the engagement process becomes a lot more formalized. And then finally, all of our fixed income assets are integrated from an ESG perspective from the bottom up. And we use the outputs available to us at franchise level for the 300 billion of assets that we manage in fixed income to implement basic filters for our sustainable universes. On the following slide, you will see that the UN Sustainable Development Goals are the North Star for any sustainable thematic investing that we do. In the corporate space, we tend to link a corporate issuer with one specific UN development goals or a UN an SDG sub-target. In the sovereign space, we had to go back to the drawing board with the understanding that sovereigns are arguably exposed to all SDGs to more or less varying degrees. So if you flip over to slide 8, actually, on the deck. How do we go about investing sustainably in sovereign? We look at 204 indicators that we link to 169 UN SDG sub-targets, and we group these indicators into 3 themes of climate, health empowerment, which is a measure of social progress, and institutions. So this is from the top down. From the bottom up, we exclude the bottom 10% of countries from an ESG integration model. We exclude non-signatories to the Paris Agreement, non-members of the World Health Organizations, and non-signatories to the Geneva Conventions, because we feel that countries that have not made this commitment show an overt lack of regard to achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And then, as a measure of do no significant harm, if a country scores very highly on climate, for example, and becomes eligible within our universe, but scores so poorly on health empowerment and institutions that its overall score is less than a 3 out of 10, we exclude the country from our investment universe. And because a country can score pretty highly on climate, but not so highly on other metrics, we commit as investors to engage with the country on those themes where they haven't reached minimum levels for inclusions on a 12-month basis. So engagement is formalized, documented, and tracked. On the following slide, you can see a few examples here of countries that can either make it or not making with their sustainable investment universe. Costa Rica, for example, passes all 3 thematic alignment themes, and therefore, doesn't need to be engaged with formally. Indonesia passes 2 out of the 3. We could only include it in a sustainable strategy if we can engage with them with tracked results on climate. A country like Russia, we wouldn't include in a portfolio like this because engagement is just not possible. And a country like Honduras actually fails on all 3 top-down metrics and will fail within our investment universe. We think this is a novel approach. We think this asset class is very interesting for insurers. And we think this approach will allow the insurers to deliver on both yield outcomes, return outcomes, as well as aligning with their sustainability goals at corporate level.
Thank you, Salima.